One of Magic's greatest strengths is in its ability to form strong bonds between the players and the cards. And every now and again a card comes along that perfectly illustrates this. At the 1998 World Championships, Mike Long had taken his legendary Prosperous Bloom combo deck all the way to the finals, and his imposing shadow loomed over a relative unknown by the name of Matt Lindy, who was playing mono-white aggro. And while Lindy would come away with an enormous upset victory, his opponent's deck would go on to become far more well-known than Lindy's white weenie list. But there was one card from the deck, on the table but nearly inconsequential in the final game, that would become a treasured favorite for 3 decades to come. Soul Warden. Simply giving you a point of life every time a creature comes into play was great against the red aggro decks of the time, but because of its appeal to casual players, it would become a beloved card for years until it was later rediscovered for the modern Soul Sisters deck, and now has a place resting comfortably in many commander decks. But every yin has its yang, and it would take nearly a decade and a half for Soul Warden to meet its counterpart. At Grand Prix Vancouver 2012, Jeremy Schofield came into the finals undefeated against Daniel Stroud, who was playing the ubiquitous mono-red aggro. Jeremy was playing a new deck with a lot of complicated math, enabled by a brand new card from Avacyn Restored, Blood Artist.
But this Blood Artist is just wreaking havoc on this board, because if David screws up blocks and a couple of guys get in and there's a bunch of triggers, and we see them all just ship in here. What a game! Wow.
Although this time the end of the story is different, Schofield dropped this match in a tense final game in which Blood Artist featured heavily. The story of Blood Artist is very similar to Soul Warden. Casual players, competitive players, and commander players have all fallen in love with Blood Artist over the years, and its existence has spawned entire genres of decks. It would take another 10 long years for both sides of the coin to come together, but in 2022, a new legend would finally appear that would marry the best parts of both cards. Meet Elas Il-Kor, who will live on throughout the next few decades of Magic as the ultimate marriage of 2 of the most loved cards in the history of the game. So it should be easy enough to make a strong standard deck with 2 of the most powerful lines of text of all time, right? Right? It's Elas Il-Kor Day. It's Elas Il-Kor Day. It's Elas Il-Kor Day. Elas Il-Kor. Da-na-na-na-na-na. It's Elas Il-Kor Day. Oh, we're going to build some Mardu Legends, baby. We're going to have a little Ratadabric. That looks good with Elas Il-Kor. A little Garna, basically another copy of Elas Il-Kor. We're even going to play some Mirror Box. I cannot wait to put 3 Mirror Box in my standard Magic the Gathering deck. There is no way that standard's so powerful that 3 Mirror Box is a bad mistake. Let's give it a shot. Let's go, Elas Il-Kor. Can't wait. A few moments later. This is terrible. This is not a good deck. Could it be? Could it be that Elas Il-Kor actually isn't very good in standard? No. No, it's Mardu. It's all these goofy legends and stuff. I think we just need to strip it down and go pure Orzhov. We can do this. Now on day 2, something happened that made me think perhaps there is luck in the universe. And maybe it's on my side after all. Because just as I was thinking to myself that Orzhov could be the ticket. We cut all those useless red cards, by the way. This is my collection. A lot of people ask to see my collection. This is what it looks like. Pretty much all the time. But anyway, we cut all the useless red cards. Garnet's dumb anyway. Why play that card? And we can play better legends along with Ratadabric and Elas. We can play things like Ao the Dawn Sky. And we can play Lisa now that we have the double white mana to be able to actually play those cards reliably. And I thought this is going to be the thing. And right as I was thinking that, me and Brittany were opening packs to sign for Patreon. And I found this lady right here. Foil Elas Il-Kor in like my 3rd pack. So I thought, this is it. This is the sign. I saw it like Ace of Base, and this is going to be the one. But no, the deck is still terrible. The deck was not good at all. Maybe if I'd have found 4, the whole playset or something like that. But no, the deck is terrible, and I don't want to talk about it because it was actually even worse than the Mardu deck. This time, it felt like there was something missing. So I decided that we were going to play a 3rd color. And then we tried Abzan. Teachings of the Kira and then joined the dance, and it was bad. I'm telling you, man, the deck was really, it was so bad. The deck was so bad. Now, Dev, you know, they're not going to let you say that on YouTube. Get the out, Jerry! Now, this right here is when old Dev lost a great degree of his hope. And most of his sanity. However, sometimes things are darkest just before the dawn. And in this dark moment, Dev remembered that one of the best decks in Standard not only happened to play a ton of legends in it, but also happened to play our color combination. Yes, sir. That's when old Dev remembered. Alright, this is the one. I cannot wait to tell the people about Esper, Elas Il-Kor. Let's get ready. Okay, here we go. What's up, Wizards? It's Dev, Mtg. We like it at magic stuff, and today I am excited after a long journey to bring you the best Elas Il-Kor deck in the format. Doop doop, you got a notification. Doop doop. Take a look. No. No, no. No. No! No. 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 That was just a horrible nightmare. Doop doop, you got a notification. Doop doop. No. No. Lost. Lost. The card that acted like a second copy of Elas Il-Kor, and a finishing touch once we had a bunch of creatures on the board. Gone forever. But after a full day of malaise, something struck me into action. A thought. What if it were better this way? Chicken. Let's go. What if not having Meat Hook in the format actually allows us to set up our board state more reliably, and if the opponent doesn't have a Meat Hook Masker out, it won't negate our copy of Elas Il-Kor. This could actually work. Could this new Orzhov deck actually be the deck to finally be the deck? I said, I'm a bad man, I don't take no crap, man. I came in riding, repping that abs in. Hi, editing Dev here, just cutting in because we're already 8 minutes into the video, and things have got to start moving along at a decent pace here, you know. In just a second, Dev was going to go to the beach and walk on the boardwalk and be all pensive and find himself. There's going to be a whole musical number and stuff, but we actually cut that. So we couldn't afford to film it in the first place. And then after that, Dev was going to go meet the abominable snowman in the mountains of Tibet. We actually filmed that. Fun fact, we had to cut that one for time. So at this point, Dev realizes that he wants to go back to the original deck, only not make it Mardu Legends. We're going to cut the Legends conceit entirely, and we're just going to make it like the best cards in Mardu while still using Elas Il-Kor and like a sacrifice conceit. So it all comes together, and Dev realizes that Mardu is the best deck. So now we'll pick up from there. What's up, Wizards? It's Dev, Mtg. We like it at magic stuff, and I have been through the fire and the flames to bring you the purest version of my love. Here's Mardu Elas. Teleport. Now, I know we're only 10 seconds into the video, but I might as well go ahead and tell you that we're playing 3 Elas Il-Kor because you don't play 4, because there is such a thing. That's too much of a good thing. I mean, you play 4, sometimes you draw another one while you already have one on the board, and then it's an awkward conversation. You have to say, hey, I'm sorry, but I met another Elas Il-Kor, and I'm gonna... You know, it's a very awkward and strange thing, love, sometimes. But if you do play an Elas Il-Kor while you already have one on the table, at least you get to shoot your opponent for a point. But of course, you know that we're playing this card, and I've got a lot to say about it, but that can wait for another day because we have the rest of our lives together. Plenty of time to talk about what this card can do. But if I had to pick what the second card would be that I would talk about in this video, it's pretty obvious. It's Wedding Announcement. Because we're getting married. Now, in my world, Elas gets what Elas wants. And what Elas wants is a couple of things. She wants a bunch of little creatures running around so that she can gain life and deal damage and do all the things that she really likes to do. And she also likes to draw cards because she wants to have a steady stream of little guys that can enter the battlefield and then also die. She loves all of that. She just loves it. But there is another powerful 3-mana enchantment why am I talking like this? In the format, and that's Fable of the Mirror Breaker, baby. We're playing both white and red. So now the meat hook is gone, why don't we play probably the 2 best cards in the entire format? And, you know, a lot like Wedding Announcement, this also gives us multiple creatures. That's good for Elas. Once we get a Reflection of Kiki Jiki, then we can copy creatures. So we get a life gain trigger, and then we sack them at end of turn, and we get a dies trigger. So, again, not only does it work well with Elas Il-Kor, the only crappy thing is that it can't copy Elas Il-Kor, but it can copy a bunch of other stuff in the deck, and that works with Elas. Obviously, in this deck, where you get extra triggers when stuff comes in the battlefield or dies, this card gets even better if that's freaking possible. It's the best card in Standard. But I know what you're saying there. We need stuff what to copy there, don't we? And we do, and there's plenty of stuff in this color combination that works really well. But one of the best things is Blood-Tithe Harvester. This is great to copy with a Reflection, but it's just good on its own as like a 2-drop. You know, 3 power, get you a blood token on the battlefield, maybe a little removal, maybe trading combat, who knows, right? But this is one of the better creatures in Standard, actually, to copy with Reflection, but again, just good on its own. And I like him. He looks like he knows how to party. Oi, but there's another 2-drop that we all fear in black these days, and it's none other than Tenacious D. Little Mac, only 3 copies of this in the deck. I feel like once you get multiple copies of them, they kind of step on each other's toes, and there's not a lot of turns where you want to blitz like 2 of them in from your graveyard, but having 1 of these is great, so I think 3 copies is correct. And this is fine to copy with a Reflection, but again, this is just one of the best creatures in Standard. If Blood-Tithe Harvester is one of the best 2-drops in Standard, I think Tenacious Underdog is like the best 2-drop in Standard. So let's play this card. But there's one more, like, I guess normal creature we'll call it in the deck, and that's Cult Conscripts. I'm playing 3 copies of this, but I don't want to play too many more, and I might actually play less. This is technically like the worst card in the deck in a lot of ways, but it's a great card, just like Tenacious Underdog, to pitch to Fable of the Mirror Breaker, or a couple of the other cards in our deck that make us discard cards. But there is one more creature in the deck, and it's actually a holdover from the days when the deck was more Legends focused. I mean, all those decks were kind of terrible, but there is one card that consistently overperformed, and it's Jadar. The Ghoul Caller. This card was actually really, really good for this deck in a number of ways. First of all, it obviously puts a creature on the table, and then also that creature dies, like pretty much every turn, which is nice to have some, you know, reliable creature production every turn for Elas Il-Kor to get triggers off of. But there's a couple of cards in the deck that want you to sacrifice stuff, and this is really good for that too, because again, it's kind of a never-ending creature factory. So if you want to play like Rite of Oblivion, which we're playing a few copies of in the deck, seems really good, then Jadar is basically the best thing that you can do if you want to sack creatures to that card. But there's another card that you might be even more keen on sacrificing them to 2 zombie boys to, and that, of course, is Ob-Nixilis, the Adversary. Ob-Nix up to his old tricks. This is actually a really sweet card, and I think a lot of people either forgot that or they always thought it was terrible because it wasn't immediately amazing as soon as it came out. And people were like, oh, it's a piece of trash, then it's always going to be garbage. Turns out the card is actually fine. Nowadays, if you want to give it another try there, Jack, it's not bad at all, especially in this deck. We got a lot of great 2-drops to sack to it, right? We got Tenacious Underdog, which can come back, Blood-Tithe Harvester, which left value on the table in the form of a blood token. And of course, you can sacrifice one of them Jadar tokens to it, like I was saying a second ago. You just get another zombie into turn. It's great value. Now, did I say back there was one more creature in the deck? Because there's actually one more creature in the deck after that. It's Seipei. It's Saragon, ladies and gentlemen. This card, I actually had to find the first iterations of the deck. There were always problems with Elas Il-Kor just dying. Whether you play her on turn 2 or you play her on turn 5, it sure does die to every card in the entire format, and people always seem to have the removals. So I really looked for ways to be able to get back Elas Il-Kor or draw more or whatever, right? Or protect her with different protection spells. That turned out to be not worth devoting slots to most of the time, but in the end, Sarah Paragon turned out to be way better than a lot of the other cards I tried, like Phyrexian Missionary, which was fine, but it was no Sarah Paragon. And in this deck, the trick really isn't being able to bring back an Elas Il-Kor with a Sarah Paragon, which you can do, and you will do some of the time, especially when you have all your other pieces in place. But the real good stuff to bring back in this deck is obviously stuff like Wedding Announcement, because it somehow always ends up in the graveyard. Your opponent just always has enchantment removal for it. But you can get back your Wedding Announcement and get back Fable of the Mirror Breaker too. So Sarah Paragon basically gets you back the 2 strongest cards not only in your deck, but like in standard too. So it seems like a pretty good card to play. But there's only a few cards left in the main deck and they all kill stuff. So now let's talk about some hot removes. Some removes. That's what the kids are calling removal now. I saw it on TikTok. Any butts, we're playing 3 copies of Rite of Oblivion. I was talking about that earlier. This is a good card with Cold Conscript, Tenacious Underdog, the tokens from Jadar, the tokens from Fable of the Mirror Breaker, for all I care. If you have to cast a Rite of Oblivion to kill that thing right now, you absolutely can and probably should, like 9 times out of 10. You can sacrifice wedding announcement tokens. There's all kinds of little stuff to sack to this. And of course, you can pitch this to like Fable of the Mirror Breaker or any of the other cards that want you to discard things and just cast it out of your yard later. There's also 1 copy of Fateful Absence, 1 copy of Cut Down, and 2 copies of Infernal Grasp in the deck because you want to remove boys. You can't just be doing your thing the whole time. Greedy, selfish. You gotta get rid of their stuff too. Interact. This is the part where I would normally tell you the lands, but all you really need to know is that we're playing an Iganjo, we're playing a Takenuma, we're playing a Sokinzen, because that makes tokens. Deck wants those. And we're playing a bunch of the Mardu stuff. We're playing like 4 copies of Caves of Koilos and then 4 copies of Sulphurous Springs. You know, spring for the Ice Age art, so you get the little demon thing in the hot tub. That's nice. But those are the lands. If you want to see a more detailed breakdown of lands, maybe check that deck list in the description. It's down there. You want to check it out. You want to see them lands. Yeah, how do you make 3-color Mardu mana base? There's no Triome in the format. Check the deck list. Now let's take a look at the sideboard we ended up on, but just a quick one here because honestly, it's fairly self-explanatory. There's 2 copies of Duress. Duress is a good card. Cut Down is in there. We got more aggro to play against. You throw some Cut Down in there, Destroy Evil. This isn't a lot of main decks nowadays, and I can totally see why, but maybe in a less meat hook standard, you don't play this. But of course, Wedding Announcement and Fable of the Mirror Breaker are in other people's decks too, so Destroy Evil is actually very, very good right now, and it might go in the main. Aside from that, Reckoner Bangbuster helps us draw some cards. We want to do that. We can also replay this with the Sarah Paragon for what that's worth. Same thing with Welcoming Vampire. I kind of split these slots in between what I wanted to draw as cards, and Welcoming Vampire is really good with all the token producers. It's great with Jadar as well if you have no other creatures going on. So just a sweet little card here that could almost be in the main deck, but instead we'll put it in the sideboard for those grindy matchups. There's also Graveyard Trespasser for when we need to mess around in that yard of theirs, because that's what they're doing and we don't like it. And then there's also 2 copies of Wandering Emperor, because it's just a good, why is it not in the main deck? Probably. And then 2 copies of By Invitation Only, which I think is one of the better sweepers that we could be playing right now. Here goes your power rankings. Final score 69. Nice. You know, altogether, it's a pretty respectable deck. And I gotta say, it's more than the sum of its parts. Synergy's relatively high, and even though the offense and the defense are lower than I want them to be, this comes together to be one of my favorite decks in the last couple of years. So I hope you can try it. I'm not really gonna sing a song. That would be kind of cringe, to be honest. And so it would seem that the grand lesson today is that sometimes love requires great sacrifices, and yet yields priceless rewards. If you enjoyed this content, consider liking it on YouTube, subscribing to the channel, or supporting it on Patreon, link in the description for that. You can of course also watch the young dev play Magic the Gathering at twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. Again, pertinent links in the description, including deck list in case you'd like to take a look at that. But with that, I believe our tale is at its end for today. And there's only one more thing to say, fellow wizards. Spread love and be kind. No. Oh, God. Jeez, what a crazy nightmare. Is that what it's like to be a YouTuber? Jeez. Wow. Well, gotta wake up and go do my real job. Here we go. Good morning, Mr. President. Morning, Carl.